a new whole era of consumption is upon us. And this is really important that we get our heads around this, because this is really going to impact, I believe, all of your strategies going forward. When you're thinking about, can I really change this business over the next 5 or 7 or 10 years, I don't think you can unless you really understand this concept. Understand what is changing out there. First and foremost is advances in technology. We're going to talk about those. We have to stay on top of those because our customers are staying on top. And this whole concept, and you've heard the buzzword, big data. Big data is out there. And large companies, and we have that opportunity too, by the way, to extract and to get a huge amount of information about our customer. A huge amount of information. And I'll talk a little bit later about some of the legal and not so legal ways of doing that. And you'll have to choose whether you want to go the illegal way. I'm not going to make any judgments. I don't want to say illegal, no, it's just different ways of tracking consumers. A lot of people are not even aware today of the technologies that we have for tracking consumers today. For example, every one of you carry a smartphone with you. And if your Wi-Fi is enabled, I can track you everywhere in my store. I can track and find out through your Wi-Fi MAC address exactly what display you stood in front of, how long you stood in front of it, and whether you eventually went to the cash register. I can track all of your behavior through that MAC address. And if you say, well, I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi signal, fine, I'll turn on my femtocell. And I will be able to track you through your regular cell phone signal. So we can track human beings today, consumers within stores. Awful lot of companies, for example, are putting cameras in mannequins' eyes. So we're able to track exactly where a customer is looking in a store when they're there, and how long, once again, they spend in particular areas. Video mining is also, we use security cameras to identify the demographic of customers coming in our store. How old they are, what sex they are, and what ethnic background. We can get all of that out of video mining. So there's tremendous, tremendous amount of technology and consumer data available to us today. And the good news is that 5 or 7 or 10 years ago, only the big guys could have afforded it. The good news is today, any size store can afford it today. It is not out of the realm of possibility at all. See, it used to be who we should target and where we should target them. So we used to think about, okay, let me target the 18 to 25-year-olds. And I'm going to do that through this radio station. I'm going to do it through this newspaper. I'm going to do it, you remember those days. You sit down with a media person, the local radio guy or gal or the local newspaper person, and they would tell you the demographic that they reach and how you, get to that particular customer. Forget about all that. Today, it's more about how people consume and why. Those are the questions, if you can answer, are going to make you successful. How do they consume? And put it very, very in your language, how do they consume shoes? How do they buy shoes? How do they buy? And why? Why? And it's not just because I need a new pair of shoes. When we begin to peel that onion, get a little bit deeper in, then some amazing things happen. So let's get into how they consume. First and foremost, consumers today are always on. They are always on. They have access to information 24/7, all the time, and they are using it. And they love to have full communication with you the same way, 24/7. Now, they don't expect you necessarily to answer an email at 4 in the morning, but certainly they expect a bounce back saying, we received your email, we'll get back to you within 24 hours, within 12 hours, within whatever. They don't expect you to have somebody necessarily answering the phone at 5 in the morning. It'd be great if you could subscribe to that kind of service, which, by the way, you can. It's not that expensive. But they do expect you to have a robust answering system that can get back to them in time. Once again, they are always on. And sometimes they want to buy, sometimes they want to just offer you advice, sometimes they want to praise you, sometimes they want to criticize you. They just want to be in contact whenever they choose to. And what is interesting today is, and again, study this slide when you download it, is this is how people buy today. And they're buying in very, very different ways. 65% of purchases today start on a smartphone. They start on a smartphone. They're not consumed there, but they then go 61% continue to a PC or a laptop. Because it's a heck of a lot easier to buy on a PC today than it is on a smartphone. And then 4% continue on a tablet. 25% start on a PC, then 19% can go to a smartphone, and then 5% continue on a tablet. And 11% start on a tablet, and then 10% continue to PC. Consumers are using all of the devices available to them today. And so the first thing that this should be rattling around in your brain is, okay, does my website look as good on a tablet or a smartphone as it does on a computer screen? You know, we all used to worry back in the old days about what resolution should we make our website. Remember those days? Some of the people in the room, should we have a 640 or an 800 by 60 resolution on our webpage? I mean, that's old 1990s today. I mean, now we know that's immediately scalable at any good site. It'll scale to whatever resolution that our consumer has. But it is a very different experience to shop on a tablet than it is on a cell phone. And we have to look at that, and are we really doing and executing that properly? Because the cell phone is changing the consumer. It's changing us psychologically. It's changing the way we interact with each other. Many of you in the room, the next gens, know that if mom or dad call, you're probably not going to pick up. If they send an email, you might look at that 3 weeks from now. But if they text you, yeah, you're going to reply. Because texting is what you do. And unfortunately, texting and even email is kind of okay. But there's nothing like psychologically talking and face-to-face. And yet, we're losing a lot of that capability as human beings. You know, we're probably within the next generation going to lose longhand writing. Recognize it. That's going away. People will not be able to write longhand. Some people will be sitting around right now going, "What's longhand?" No. You're at least, you at least went to good schools. But we are, so we're losing those capabilities. And this device that is called the smartphone is going to be so much more powerful than you could ever imagine. Every smartphone that's in this room right now, for example, has got more computing power than NASA had to put a man on the moon. Fact. You have more RAM, more storage, more processing power in your smartphone than NASA had in all of their computers to put a man on the moon. And that's just the beginning. Because cell phones, smartphones follow Moore's Law. And Moore's Law is still definitely in effect, which means that every year computing power is going to double while the price is cut in half. Intel is predicting that within the next 9 years, they will have significant processing power on a chip in a cell phone that will handle simultaneous translation. So you will speak on the phone in English. Somebody in Hong Kong will hear you in Mandarin. And they will reply in Mandarin. You will hear them in English. That will be a game changer. That's just some of the technology that is happening today. I already told you about our ability to track you in almost any environment as long as your cell phone is turned on. We can track you. And as soon as we find out what your ESN is, and by the way, so far with privacy laws, we have to ask you for your ESN, your electronic serial number. But once I know your electronic serial number and you've given me permission, then I know that Jim's in the building. As soon as I get within 3 blocks of your store, you know I'm there. Geofencing. And so as soon as I walk through the door, you can greet me by name. And yes, this is Back to the Future. It's the same way as we would have been running our stores 100 years ago. We would have known every customer by name and we would have known what they wanted. Technology is just bringing us back there. And that technology today is available for everybody. And again, this is the one that blows me away. 39% of people are using their smartphones, yes, on the toilet. If that isn't a game changer, I mean, if you're shopping for shoes on the John, I mean, this is scary. But it's reality. People are using these devices everywhere. And they are changing the way we work. And you know something? It's really funny what the way that everything's old is new again. If If you remember, again, some of you in the room, when we first started putting our web pages up, we were really worried about the size of our JPEG files because most of our customers had dial-up modems. And dial-up modems are very slow. And if your page didn't load fast enough, the consumer would go to a different website. Then all of a sudden, everybody got DSL and got faster, and retailers didn't worry anymore about the speed of their site. Well, hello, time to start worrying again. We are now recognizing that even with 4G speed, that a lot of sites take too long to load. And research is telling us that if the customer, 73% feel that if a mobile service doesn't deserve their loyalty, they will move on to a different one if it doesn't meet their needs. The customer is telling us they want it mobile and they also want it fast. In dollar terms, if your site has a 1 second delay in page load time, this is a $100,000 a day site, by the way, this is cost you $2.5 million, but just scale it down. If your site does $10,000 a day, it's still going to cost you $2,500 a day of customers abandoning and just moving on somewhere else. This always-on customer wants it fast. And so we really need to go back and relook at our technology. And also, huge trend we're seeing out there is the whole trend of social.